Hello and welcome to Camera Central podcast. Today I'm with Yolanda Kingdon at a house because the studio's been taken up today. But nice to see you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Who you are? And everything.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you so much for coming to my home on my sofa.
Coming to the home, more like invading the home, pretty much.
It's good. Yeah, so I'm Yolanda. I am a Sony European ambassador, imaging creator ambassador. I've been shooting for 18 years now, varied from beauty photography to wedding photography. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you've pretty much been doing everything under the sun. And we were talking kind of like what we want to discuss today. I think with you it's a very unique perspective because when it comes to photography, it's a very male-dominated environment. But the other side of it is you're a working mother as well. And, you know, kind of what is it like to balance all of those aspects of being a creative and doing it all?
So photography for me is almost like one of my babies. Like, I love photography, and if I didn't have that, I think that me personally, I would quite, I'd sort of suffer. It's almost like an artist or a musician or something. It's my little outlet of being able to express myself. But juggling it, the dynamic of it is quite difficult. So, for example, like on a normal day shoot or a wedding, I've got to obviously get up, get the children ready, sort the cats out before I can even think about having a shower or dressing or getting my kit together. So that in itself is quite exhausting, but I do it because I love photography. So there is that sort of incentive and that push because I want to do it. I'm passionate about it.
So what got you interested in it? Because of course you're quite clearly so passionate about it, but what got you into photography to the point where you are now, where you're running a successful business, but you're also a Sony imaging ambassador for Europe. What got you started doing photography?
So I was in college studying psychology and English literature. And on a Monday we used to do almost like a course that you can do, so of your choice. So it could be art, it could be makeup, it could be whatever you wanted. And I chose makeup because I used to love makeup, another form of expressing through an artistic, creative way, And so I was doing makeup, and then my form tutor came to me and she said, "You've got this amazing talent with makeup." And she actually felt that she was learning quite a lot from me. And she said, "Why don't you go home and do a portfolio, get some friends and do some makeup and do some creative looks and stuff." I was like, "What the hell's a portfolio?" I had no idea what a portfolio was. So I ran home and I was like, Mum, I need to get a camera. And she was like, "Well, we've got this holiday point and shoot camera," and it was actually a Sony Cybershot camera.
Oh,
like a little
Sony,
full circle thing.
Circle thing.
So that was just like a point and shoot little flip up. Flash came on and stuff, and just started creating with that. And then my dad heard that I was interested in photography, and he goes to avid going to car boot sales. He loves going to there and having a little look around in the scraps. And he picked up 2 heated lamps. And he was like, "Why don't you use these for lights?" So oh God, the Kelvin was just horrendous. Everyone was orange, but I worked with it,
so actual heat lamps. So the ones that just literally just glow orange. So it's not like a redhead at all. It's oh my days. That's some dramatic lighting.
So it was fun. And then my nan, eventually, after a year, she was like, "Right, okay, so I can tell that you love doing this, you're passionate about it, I'll buy you some lights." So she gave me that year to kind of, prove myself, because she wasn't just going to go out and go, "Right, I'm going to put down £1,000 on some lights." So I got a pair of Gemini Esprits. Yeah. And that was my first set of lights. And then I ended up another year later with my first camera, and it was a Canon.
It was a Canon.
It was a Canon.
I was a Canon shooter as well. It's one of those things.
I know. But yeah, so then I was able to have a little bit more freedom, and I was then involved in some photography, not clubs, but I was on this platform called Model Mayhem. Yeah. I think it's still going. So you could basically pull together makeup artists, models, photographers, So I was kind of on the flip side of doing at that time a little bit of modelling, as well as doing photography. Yeah. So I remember going to this couple, and they were a couple photo team, and the guy said, "Right, so you've been doing this for 2 years at this point now. Do you fancy sort of experimenting a bit more with manual?" And I was like, "What do you mean? How do you shoot manually?" So it's kind of just learning baby steps. through like how I could be a little bit more expressive then through shooting manual.
Oh, nice. Yeah, crazy. Like, what I find fascinating about doing the podcast in general is that I always feel like I learn something new, but also it's nice to see like how people's journeys have kind of like, expanded throughout the years. And of course, you are an incredible photographer when it comes to your portrait work, but you also do weddings as well. Kind of how did you switch over to weddings first, or is it like, when did you start doing weddings, and when was that kind of?
I've kind of always gone on years ago, I used to go on the basis of when a client would approach me and say, hey, can you photograph me giving birth, which I have done, or can you photograph me pregnant, or can you so it was sort of that transition of, right, okay, can you photograph my wedding? I love your style of beauty photography, and also did a lot of like pageantry back then as well, and it was more the glamorous sort of side of women, wanted like this, sort of look, and then it was just sort of like a transition. So I'd say about 5 years ago into like weddings, but now it's more heavily on weddings than it is with beauty. But what the beauty of it is that it's seasonal with weddings. So I've got my time and my months where I can do weddings, and then in the other months I can then go, I can be a bit more creative again and go back into beauty. So
that's nice. Because what I've always found fascinating about weddings in particular is the fact that you end up actually doing a bunch of different kind of genres. So I think going into it from a beauty perspective gives you very much an advantage, because it's like you know how to get those bridal portraits that are just going to be stunning every time. But also there are, like, when it comes to doing weddings, there's a lot of other kinds of photography involved. So what was that kind of like to do with it? So you like your documentary stuff, your thing?
It was a great way of being able to be artistic and then being creative and then setting up the group shots. So like now I've learned through trial and error that I've got to have all of these little things like sort of set up. But yes, going back to with the whole women sort of perspective, it is great because I can like actually like move and go, right, kind of tuck your shoulders down a little bit, move your chin a little bit. So it has given like a big advantage. But it's not just, you're not just a wedding photographer. You are, the helper on the day. Is there anything I can get you? Can I help you do your cufflinks? Can I help, so you're running around doing other things.
And that's the biggest thing I think, from my experience being a wedding videographer, is you end up guiding the day more than anybody else. And it's about controlling it and making sure that the couple feel happy, but very much I think this is the case for any kind of like wedding photographer or videographer, that they always fall in this role of actually dictating the day more than anybody else.
Well, keeping like a time on things though as well, and if you haven't got a wedding coordinator or something like that, it is your photographer is really in charge of these special, like these poignant moments throughout the day. Like, right, okay, guys, you've got to be here. Right, you've got to do this. So I've got my little like watch now where I kind of like time things. No, but it keeps the whole day in flow. It definitely.
And I think when it comes to anything kind of like creative, like keeping that flow and the fluidity as to how you work, how you create, I think is massively important. And
having fun, like
that's the biggest thing.
I know,
and like thing. Because I mean, a lot of other people, don't necessarily work within this field, and when it comes to the creative field, but also just being creative in general, it is ultimately just fun, isn't it? I'm incredibly proud to actually be able to do this for a living, and I'm guessing that's the case for you as well. It's a really fun industry to be in, but even if it wasn't necessarily my main job, I think having that sort of like creative outlet, I think is massively important.
And also making sure that, not making sure, but getting your clients to sort of like almost win their trust, like just trust me, if you like trust me and let me sort of be creative on the day, that you're going to get more out of it, because you do get some clients that are like, just do this, do that, can you do that, and it's a bit like, hang on a minute, like I want to be able to be a little bit more creative, but it is such a special moment that you're sharing. But when you walk into that room, like, so if, for example, I walk into the bridal suite in the morning, you're not going to walk and go, oh, hi girls. You want to walk in there and like give them like a vibe, like, hi girls, how's this going? Pop the bottle of champagne. Like,
let's do this. Just be the party.
Put some music on and like, get that vibe going. That's is so important.
Massively.
Walk in there and go like, oh, hi guys.
Oh, hi guys. Oh, yeah, no, it's I like 100%. It's like you've got to win over the couple throughout the day for like a few different reasons. I think one of the reasons for me was to understand their threshold to where like you push them too much. Which but also, if you get to the point where you're quote unquote friends, then you've got the ability to get more out of them. Ultimately make the intuition and make their photos more special.
Because you can always tell it with the blokes, and they're just like, I just want to go and like hang out with my mates. Like, I've had enough pictures now, and you're like, right, okay, then
then like, hello. That can lead, I can't even see him, but to be fair, that can lead into some other special moments with the boys then as well. But it's really, really interesting.
But it's not a photo shoot, and that's what I always try to say when I have the initial phone call with, the couple. It's like, yes, we're going to get some amazing images, but it isn't a photo shoot. It's your wedding day.
Yeah.
You are there to celebrate the love for one another, to see your friends, your family, friends you haven't seen for years, or they might live abroad or something. So to pull them away too much and turn it into like a full-on sort of production, I think that's really unfair.
Yeah, and it's hard to,
kind of like balance it a little bit.
Yeah, balance it. That's what I was looking for, balance. Like, you've managed to build up a following around kind of what you do, and in today's kind of thing, I think the difference between who is a photographer and who is a videographer is very much like closing down, and we've been given a new label, which is content creator. So of course, I think it's one of those things where like video has been used, photo was used to advertise video in the past, but very much video these days is what advertises your photography
social
work.
media.
Exactly. So of course, photographers like yourself have to start dabbling in some video. How have you been finding that? What have you been doing recently?
I went to Saint-Tropez at the beginning of the year, and I photographed an engagement shoot, and it was very cinematic. Obviously, like a lot more into it, so I wouldn't have had, the pictures on the go as well as the video. So it was more sort of controlled in that, and like I colour graded it and went through it. But yeah, going back to the content creation, it is great to have that option to say, I can do this for you, or I can get somebody else on to do this for you on the wedding day, so that they actually have these little moments behind the scenes and for their Instagram and social media. So I think it is nice to have a bit of both, but obviously being predominantly a photographer, I've got to sort of concentrate on that. But if somebody chose for me to do the videography, then I would only do that. You can't do the two things.
No, you can't. I know there's a bunch of photographers that do it, but to do the two jobs well, realistically, you need a team together or something like that, because you can't focus on both.
Well, how could you get the kiss? How could you get like the confetti moment? Like, so many different things, And
it's like grabbing a frame from a video.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't necessarily always work like that. It's not the most ideal situation. So,
which clients don't necessarily understand as well, and you've got to try and explain that to them as well. You know, I really love your photography and I love your video. Can you do both?
Biggest thing though, and I don't know if
I'll duplicate myself.
I don't know if you've necessarily experienced this. When it comes to people who are solely videographers for weddings and stuff, every time you walk in and amongst the guests, it's like, can you take a photo? But and especially I've had it with this camera here, which is a cinema camera, it can't take photos. But yeah, it's just funny.
They're just like,
hey.
And you're like, it's kind of rolling, guys.
It's kind of rolling, guys. I got to the point where I was just literally pointing up the camera, there you go. You got to love those surprise photos and the videos from stuff. Cool. So what do you reckon is your biggest struggle that you've gone through over doing your career?
We're going to touch on the anxiety bit.
Yeah, that's
are we touching on the anxiety?
You said it was something you did want to talk about, and I think it's something that's important to talk about because we've just come out of COVID, and I think a lot of people went through some mental instability, but also financial instability, and it brings out a lot of emotions, anxieties, and stuff like that.
So I do have a family history of anxiety. My mother has suffered very badly with it. She takes Seroxat, which is an antidepressant. I have been on antidepressants in the past for postnatal depression, but I felt within myself that I knew naturally what my body needed, which was nutritional food, and to go for a walk, and just to do breathing exercise and stuff like that. So I decided to kind of come away from that. But yeah, definitely with COVID, it struck me for my confidence, going out driving. Like, my driving anxiety has been horrendous, so much so where, sound really embarrassing now, but it's taken me like 3-4 hours to get to a wedding venue because I've had to go through all of the country lanes because I'm a fear of going on the motorway, which I had never experienced that before. I wouldn't want to put myself at danger or anybody else on the road at danger. But like daily, it has been like a struggle since COVID for sure. Like, even for me to go into town and everybody's sort of walking towards me, it's almost like a social anxiety and a misophonia. I don't know if you know what misophonia is.
No.
So it's almost this thing that if you have these sort of like irritating noises, so if somebody's like chewing or clicking or doing something, it's very like irritating. It actually like affects you like inside, and it's just really, really strange. But I think that in a nutshell, my life is so fast paced and so full on. I've got obviously my 4 children. I've got my nan that's not very well. She recently got diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia. She was the matriarch of the family. And seeing somebody sort of depleting so much, that's been hard. But I think having all of that and then making sure that I've got a smile on my face for my clients and like smile on my face for everybody else, and like, oh my God, like what you do is so amazing, like you're raising the flag for women and la 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 la. And I'm like, inside I don't feel like that, but like I'm trying to, if I was to mope around and be sad, it's going to manifest. So like, I think in my head, like, try and have this positive, attitude and try and push forward. And obviously then that kind of falls through into like imposter syndrome as well. So, when I started doing the talks in the NEC and stuff like that, I was like so scared of like, what are people going to think? Like I'm not like worthy to be here, and all these things just start like going on in your head. But then I, as soon as I did it, and I did my first one, I was like, I did my first one, and like it's just like these little baby steps. I think you just put so much pressure on yourself. But yeah, like I think definitely now, like, if you asked me to do this like 2 years ago, I wouldn't have even been able to be in front of these cameras, like at all.
No.
I find it really intimidating, but you've got to just keep on.
100%. And I think it's something that I found because for the longest time I've actually wanted to start doing something a little bit like this, which is the YouTube, and.
I feel like we're like slowly going out.
No, it's a bit weird, isn't it? I don't know. It's like even it's the camera walking forward.
It's just
or something.
Like look at my like picture wall.
Look at the lovely pictures. No, but for the longest time I felt like kind of anxiety about kind of like being myself through a number of different reasons. I'm not going to go into too much of that myself because it's more about you. But it's one of those things. Is like, when you end up finding yourself and finding your way out of that kind of like anxiety of like, am I worthy enough to be doing this? Am I worthy enough to be a videographer? I think, or like doing this content creation. I think what's been interesting is I finally got to a point, and I think you have as well from what I've seen, where you can just be yourself. And I think that's, be yourself. Be excited, be not nervous about these bulky things that are in the room staring at us, and hopefully create, but also be there. I don't know, it's a bit weird. I think
like
really
manifesting and things like that, like especially sort of just giving yourself these like little, even if it's in like your head. I know that some people like write it out like, I am worthy enough, or like I deserve, like I could say like, I deserve this opportunity with Sony, like I deserve this opportunity now because I've worked so hard. And then saying these little things even in your head, like in the morning, like I am blah 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 blah, like whatever you may need. It just gives you that little kind of incentive and this little sort of like push, and it can change the way that you think. But I think that also being able to speak out, like hopefully even if there's one person that's just like, oh, like if she can do it, I can do it, sort of thing, or he or whoever it may be, like then they can do it.
So what is next for Yolanda Kingdon?
I don't really like. I would just like to eventually, like at the end, I don't know, like the end of my career, I don't think I'd ever probably stop doing photography. I'll probably be there in like my 90s life. But no, I would really love to, it's going to be like a big sort of like statement now, but I would love to have hi Ruben. I would love to, it's my cat, I'd love to have almost like an umbrella company where I could, you know, help like people. So if they were coming out of uni and if they were really, really, not even like university or like wanted to, like myself, like I'm completely self-taught, that showed that passion, that I would love to come in and be like a team, like I could help teach and train and do more workshops. I think more on that sort of aspect of helping people like believe in themselves, and then if they wanted any advice, you know, doing like online courses, you know, whether it be beauty photography or with weddings or whatever it may be. I think that that's like one little avenue that I'd like to kind of go down.
That sounds really interesting.
But
from the perspective of helping people. I like that. I think that's that'll be really interesting to see kind of what happens with that. Because I think getting started is always the hardest thing. And we got the next guest, Ruben. Meow. Meow. That's kind of what I imagine him to be like. Meow. Sorry, just slightly distracted. So what do you shoot with then? So what's the gear that you shoot with?
I use a Sony A1, which is my baby. I do love the 24-70 and the 70-200, but I also love the 70-300, which I wouldn't have found unless I'd used this program called Elixir. It's something like a lighting program. I did use this word Elixir before, and then somebody corrected me. It's share a light or something like that, I think. But you can. It's the cat, I think.
That's fine.
But yeah, so on this program, you can set up a studio setup, and you can have a small room, a medium room, a large room. You can choose your lights, continuous, flash. You can choose the modifiers. You can choose the cameras. You can choose the lenses, and you've got a model that stands in this pretend room and the software room. And I thought, right, okay, let's just try out all these like different lenses. So I tried out the 70-300, and the compression for my beauty cropped images. It was like amazing. I was like, I'm going to go out and go and buy this. So I went into the camera center. And I was like, right, I need this lens.
So
and it's
that's
amazing,
the FE 70-300.
Yeah.
Oh, mad! I wouldn't have actually necessarily thought that.
I did a few workshops over this year, and I was talking to a few people that were like, "What's the best like lens?" And they were like, "Surely like a 90 or like a macro or whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, but." I like to kind of sit back, so I like being like on a stool or on a seat, and I like to like have my cup of coffee and have my vape, have some music on, and I like to kind of let the model sort of you know move. I put some music on, so I think being right up in their face. It's not my style of photography. I did try it. I did buy one. I took it back. I traded it in. It's just not something that I like for beauty photography. But yeah, definitely having that further away sort of perspective.
So like you're gonna look for the 300 f2.8 next, is it? It's a little bit.
Get like a 600.
Yeah, you get like a 600.
I'll be in the next
studio
room.
Portrait. Yeah, perfect. Amazing. So like, why Sony for you then? Why have you picked that one?
Excuse me. I love Sony because having that creative freedom, because yes, there are a lot of the parts in the camera that can do elements for you that's a lot more efficient and a lot easier, so you do have that creative freedom. I also prefer the way that the menu system works for me, not for everybody, but like I do prefer it.
The menu, like, has the A1 actually gone to the new menu system? Is that still in the old one? So like
and also you can always like update it and stuff as well,
which is pretty good. I'm getting distracted by cats. I got another cat at the moment. That's the next thing we can talk about. No, I like the Sony cameras. I like all cameras really. I'm a massive geek on technology, but for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's how the camera feels and how it reacts to the way in which you react to situations. I think that's the most important
and
part.
It should just be like an extension of you. It's like if I was to give you a paintbrush and then, you know, me to have a paintbrush, it doesn't matter like what brush we're using. It, you know, if we're more comfortable holding it or using it or whatever, it just is to do with that really more than anything.
100%.
I think he's like scratching the joggers.
Oh, okay.
I know.
So, approaching the final question now.
Yes.
What advice would you give to somebody looking to get into the field, be it creative, doing beauty photography, what have you? What advice? Hello. What advice would you give to somebody?
I think our favourite word today is creative. To, if you are a creative, to, not think like, I have to go out and go and buy this £10,000 sort of, equipment. I think that definitely trying out, go into the camera shop, try out, how it feels, what you feel is easier. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg. You can get like a lot of, kit cameras and stuff like that. But I think that definitely putting together more so like the mood board and what you want to achieve in your mind as well. What do you want that end result to look like? Because I think a lot of people, they go, right, okay, I've got a camera now. Is it going to do the work for me? Like, no, like you have to have something in mind. Like, do you want to do sports photography? Okay, then you need to reach out to that sort of perspective. You want to do animal photography? Like, what do you want to do? So, and then it can go off onto like all different, avenues then. But yeah, I think that definitely having like something in mind first.
So something in mind.
Mind first, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go to sleep.
Yeah, he's just
fed up.
face against the wall.
I think he's just totally feels like guys like.
Well, Yolanda, it's thank you for inviting me into your house.
Thank you so much for being
here. Letting me invade the house. And it's been a really lovely conversation. Yeah. And I hope that we can do a few more things in the future. We've got some ideas going up in the air.
Yes, we do.
And we'll keep y'all posted.
Yeah, thank you so
amazing.
much.
It's fun.